Hey there guys, Aero here, and today bringing you Let's Talk F1 2014, where we'll be looking ahead to the Chinese Grand Prix by looking at what aerodynamic upgrades they're bringing to the car in free practice, and also quickly reviewing the Bahrain Grand Prix, how their races went individually, team by team, and just making some predictions at the end of the video. So let's get straight into it with the first team, which I'll be looking at, is Mercedes. Mercedes, well, what can you say, really? They're so out ahead, it's just ridiculous. They're so OP, it's madness, you know. They had probably about a 1.5 seconds ahead of the rest of the field, and they were just in a world of their own. I guess the only kind of good thing is that the fact that both of the Mercs were there, and they were both fighting really hard. It was a very, very enjoyable race to watch, and I think Hamilton really proved himself at Bahrain. You know, people were heralding his Malaysian drive. I really don't think it was a great drive. You know, it was a pretty standard kind of Vettel, like, you know, kind of just, you know, take the car around in first place. But the Bahrain one really did prove that he can, you know, he's up to the task, and you know, I think he's proved that he can defend quite, think about the race and defend quite well, and the moves he was pulling on Rosberg to try and keep ahead in first place were really good for Mercedes, and it was overall a very strong race for them, and really I wouldn't be surprised if they're winning every single race in the season. So that was Bahrain. Really not much to say really about their Bahrain race. Let's get on to China and see what kind of upgrades they're bringing. So Mercedes, even though they're so far ahead of the pack, they're still bringing upgrades. As you can see now, it's a picture of the front wing and specifically the nose area. Now, if you can see the panels that join the kind of nose structure going onto the chassis and the front wing, if we just look at the old spec from Bahrain and now this one in China, you can see that they kind of pushed it back for China and kind of made it more like a rounded, curved, but boxy shape, which just means they get a lot more air underneath the car. And now a picture from straight on of Rosberg down one of the straights. You can see there's clearly like a nice big chunk of space underneath the nose where all the air is going to funnel through. You know, basically, essentially, like last year, they kept on trying to bring the noses higher and higher to get a nice, you know, chunk of rectangular area, surface area of air coming through. It's the same thing here with Mercedes' nose. They've got a nice square chunk coming through, and honestly, you know, it's the prettiest design of them all, and a really effective one. I mean, I'm actually quite surprised that, you know, other teams aren't really copying them. I guess, you know, it's a fundamental thing about the car. They've got to change the underside if they went through this. But, you know, definitely this design is one out. And I think definitely for 2015, if the rules don't change, there was some, you know, stuff going on about how they might change the rules so teams can't make these ugly noses. But if that doesn't happen, then I wouldn't be surprised to see people copying Mercedes' kind of philosophy of this kind of low but kind of spread out surface area nose, trying to get air underneath the car. It's working really well for them. So moving on to the next team, which is Force India. Force India got a brilliant podium in Bahrain with a third place from Perez, one of his many podiums now, and a really amazing job for him. And you know, Force India, you know, I'm happy to see them achieve that. You know, their first podium since that famous one by Fisichella in Spa. So very good for them. They've finally broken through in the kind of modern F1 kind of era with Perez and not Hulkenberg. I was quite surprised to see Hulkenberg in 5th. He got taken by Ricciardo towards the end of the race. But generally a very good, strong weekend for Force India. And, you know, afterwards the team were very happy and they're very adamant about keeping this performance. So we'll see if it continues. But actually there's some interesting upgrades they brought to China. So let's look through that now. So here we come to a picture of the Force India going down the Chinese Grand Prix circuit. As you can see, I've, as I have done before, and especially in my Malaysia video, I've put some arrows to kind of analyze the aero work they've done. So now they've got a new rear wing end plates, and they've got these little fins on the back that kind of tilt upwards. And you can see by the arrows that will channel air when it comes to the end plates. It will channel it upwards, and obviously that creates the upwash, and that will just create a net downforce, if you know what I mean. If you don't, comment below and I will try and explain it. Also, they've got this little kind of gill that most teams have. Mercedes famously had it first kind of debuting when they had the passive double DRS system, but this one's a bit less aggressive, obviously, because it doesn't have a passive DRS attached to it, because obviously that's banned now. But it's got a little gill that basically makes air go down towards the diffuser, makes it work a lot harder. Same sort of philosophy to McLaren's mushroom rear wing rear suspension, except, you know, this is just Aero stuff of just two little gills channeling air down to make it work harder. And because of Mercedes, the Mercedes engine actually got an upgrade for the exhaust outlet. All Mercedes power teams have this now. It's a smaller outlet and just a lot tighter packaging at the back. So it means Force India actually brought a new side pod for this race, and it's a lot tighter. So now you actually get a proper curvature where the air can channel through and go to that little gap between the rear wheel and the rear wing, and kind of create a little vacuum area, and it hunkers the car down at the rear. So it will help their downforce, and I think Force India is going to look good again for another podium this weekend, perhaps with Hulkenberg, I don't know, maybe with Perez once again, but they're looking very good. Some nice aero upgrades for Force India here. So my next team is going to be Red Bull. So Red Bull had a pretty decent race in Bahrain, I guess you could say, because their engine is so down on power compared to the Mercedes units. Fourth place for Ricciardo and sixth place for Vettel is very good for them. And Ricciardo beating Sebastian fair and square. He overtook him, at the start, and there was some nice battles between them. And then eventually the team had to actually say, Seb, you're slower than Ricciardo, because they're on different strategies. And Seb let him go. And then towards the end of the race, we had like a 10-minute, we had that 10 lap kind of stint where teams were battling, and Ricciardo managed to overtake Seb. I think I can't remember, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he was maybe already ahead of Seb, or he might be a bit behind, but the point is, he overtook Hulkenberg ahead of Seb, and went on to get fourth, 2 places ahead of Sebastian, which just, was quite impressive to me for Ricciardo. But the engine power was still way down. Red Bull took off some aero on the front wing, because, the drag just wasn't good enough for the amount of power they're getting. They usually can make up the time they lose on the straights with getting the downforce through the corners, but really the engine being down on power from the Renault thing is just so bad that they need to take a lot more aero off this year to really negate that time loss. So now I'm going to move on to McLaren. So McLaren, well, it was a tale of two halves, because it ended very badly for them. A double DNF. Being a McLaren I'm not a McLaren supporter. I mostly support Jenson Button as a driver, but inadvertently I support McLaren then. And it was looking good for both of them. Jenson Button looked really strong. Kevin Magnussen, he was looking okay, actually, I should say. Had a few issues. He was having issues with the clutch, kind of the software of it all race, and they both retired due to this clutch issue. And actually, it wasn't actually an actual clutch issue. It was confirmed in free practice by Ted Kurritz that it was actually a software malfunction. They were trying to do something a bit fancy with it to try and maybe gain some performance, and it just kind of glitched out on them and affected the clutch quite heavily. So they had to retire both cars. Really unfortunate for McLaren. But let's see if China brings anything for them. To be honest, I don't have high hopes for them at China either. I think they're just trying to find their feet still after last year's difficult times. I don't think they're trying anything too brash and too new, but there were a few tiny little aero upgrades at China, and we'll get into that now. So here's a picture of the McLaren front wing, and you can see on the end plate here, it used to be smooth completely, but now you can see there are 2 little winglets that kind of curve, and you can see where it would channel the air. So essentially the air comes in and it kind of just gets scooted up. They're trying to scoot it over the front tire, so it kind of goes over the front tire, gets dragged along into the side pod inlet and around the side pods. Also, you can see under the second winglet on the back, it's kind of curving outward a tiny bit, so that will be pushing the air outwards around the tire as well. So essentially they're just trying to get air around these tires. The tire, even though it's the only point of contact for the car on the track, it is a very big obstacle for aerodynamicists. It's a big, chunky, rectangular thing in their way, so they need to get the air around it somehow. So McLaren, a few little details here and there, like this, and apart from this, I didn't actually see too much, which is a bit disappointing, because I believe they did say they were bringing a few upgrades for China, But yeah, still should surely help them a tiny bit. We'll see, maybe gain them maybe half a tenth or something like that, or maybe even a tenth, if things go really well for them. So now we're going to move on to Ferrari. Ferrari. I don't know what is up with them. Whatever you say, whoever fan you are of, you cannot deny Ferrari and Formula One go together. A big part of the history of the sport, and even though I'm not a Ferrari fan, I have never been a Ferrari fan, it's still a bit, it just melts your heart a tiny bit to see them doing so badly, getting 9th and 10th, last point scorers on the grid. Just so poor, Alonso sarcastically waving his hand at the end of the race at Bahrain, kind of saying, is this the best we can do? 9th place here. So, Ferrari very poor. They said they were going to bring upgrades for China. I'm actually yet to really see anything. I've not actually got any pictures for you to show for anything that Ferrari I've seen, because, Sky Sports didn't mention anything. No websites have really mentioned anything of any upgrades Ferrari have brought. Seemingly, they do seem quite good. They had a bit of pace in free practice, but I suggest that you don't read into it too much. And I'm sorry to say, if you any Ferrari fans out there getting their hopes up about the pace from free practice, I don't think you should read anything into it, especially with the wet qualifying. Alonso says they're pretty much screwed if it is wet in qualifying. And also big news about Dominicali going out, and a new guy coming in. I can't remember for the life of me his name. I'm actually going to look it up quickly if you don't mind right now. Live commentary on the fly at the moment. What's this guy? It's called Mattiacci. All right, Mattiacci, that's the guy's name. So yeah, he walked into the Ferrari kind of room with a bit of swagger about him, just kind of giving the blank face, the sunglasses on, and he's just a bit chill, and he was just chilling out, really trying to learn the ropes. He's actually a guy from Fiat, and there were rumours he didn't like motorsport. It's been confirmed he does. He has said he does like motor racing, but he's part of the Fiat division in the Ferrari sports car division, not even Formula One or motor racing division. So a bit of a weird move, but I think Ferrari internally wanted someone that they already knew to lead the team. I don't know if it'll be good or bad for them. Only time will tell, really. But that's been Ferrari. Actually, surprisingly, no upgrades that Alonso talked about. I'm sorry, Alonso. I don't know what you were really talking about, because all the reports haven't picked up on anything about Ferrari bringing any new upgrades, really. So moving on to Williams. Williams had a really poor race by their standards, because they were looking very they were sounding very confident going into the race, and it just seemed like they were very rear tyre limited. 7th and 8th for Massa and Bottas. The rear tyre is really degrading. I think China may be better for them, because China is a front limited circuit. Essentially, you need the front to grip in really nicely. The fronts are where all the issues are. You have tyre graining, where essentially the tyres go over the surface and get hot, and the tyre rubber starts to kind of grain up. So that's why it's front tyre limited. And so because of this, I think maybe Williams will be able to get the power down a bit more, through the long winding corners of China. And moving on to just a tiny little analysis about Williams. So here's a little picture of the Williams front wing at China, and just a little note just to look at the front wing and just kind of, just sort of admire it. Kind of, I know I sound like a massive nerd when I say let's just admire it. But I don't know, it's just nice to kind of see the little detail. And I'm actually going to do a little cross comparison, little hint to myself in editing booth. If I put some pictures up of the Force India front wing and the Mercedes front wing, just to look at the differences, and even the Marussia front wing, you can see, there's just a lot of differences between these teams in terms of front wing complexity. And, I'm sure it's more complicated than I'm giving off. But sometimes I have, obviously it's very dumb for me to say, but I have those moments where I'm just like, how come Marussia just can't make a nice front wing that works? Because, surely just slap some winglets on and it works. But obviously, it's a lot more complicated than that. But it's interesting to see the different kind of shapes they go with. And, Mercedes go with these flicks and, tearing of levels. You've got Force India with these kind of upward winglets in the middle, whereas Mercedes have a lack of that. And it's very interesting just to see the different style of front wings there. Not really an analysis of Williams as such, just a little comparison front wing to front wing, really. So let's move on to Toro Rosso. So Toro Rosso had quite a poor race, 11th with Kvyat, that's okay. DNF with Verne though, not very good. Seems to have dropped off a little bit of pace since since you know, the first few races. Australia, Malaysia. I had a bit of a mind blank there. So yeah, Toro Rosso dropping off a bit of pace. Not too much to talk about for China. The floor of their car, the rear of it was actually catching on the tyres. I believe it was them and Red Bull indeed, and they actually had to remove the floor and trim off a bit of the floor to stop it kind of trailing on the tyre wall, which was a bit weird to hear. But yeah, not too much. They've got a skinnier rear wing. As you can see now, the top element of the rear wing of the Toro Rosso is a bit skinnier. Pretty much a standard thing you're going to see across the whole board for all teams. Just skinnier rear wings because they don't want as much drag through that last down straight where they're going to get up to, you know, rumours are saying 315 kilometers per hour, roughly about 205 mph, which is quite a lot. So yeah, they don't want a lot of drag. Obviously they don't want it, they want a good enough aero for the middle sectors, but you know, it's a bit of a compromise really. So moving on to Lotus and Sauber now. Lotus and Sauber, as I've said, the picture really sums it up. Lotus nowhere again, 12th and 14th, and Sauber, well, the picture really does sum it up for them. They're literally like a submarine at this point. Upside down, double DNF. Their car is overweight, which means Vettel has to drive without a drinks bottle in Bahrain. A whole load of stuff. They're doing so poorly at the moment. It's really, you know, it's a bit sad since they were doing quite well last season, and now seemingly with maybe budget problems, just design problems. Also the Ferrari engine maybe not helping them out. Just not very good at all. You know, a terrible race for them in Bahrain, double DNF, and Lotus not too much better with Maldonado completely losing his senses. And in China, free practice 1, he crashed out as well. It really is going all wrong for Pastor Maldonado. I don't really know if his head's screwed on properly. But yeah, and as you would imagine, no aerodynamic things really coming to Lotus and Sauber, and you know, unless you've found some random article about it. I really haven't seen anything written about it. I think they're really just concentrating on reliability, both of them, to be honest, especially Sauber, trying to maybe also get a lightweight chassis. Apparently they're trying to get one in for Europe to make their whole package a bit more lightweight, so things like Vettel not driving out a water bottle doesn't happen again, which is absolute madness. So yeah, moving on to the last two teams, Marussia and Caterham. Marussia and Caterham, the standard same thing really. Chilton getting good 13th place, but I've come to realise really in these Let's Talks I can't really do the last two teams in too much in depth. Although right now, you'll see on screen, I've got a little analysis for the Caterham, just showing the kind of comparison difference between the Caterham and the Red Bull. You know, just the side pods aren't really sculpted enough, and you know, you can kind of see the areas where they need to improve, but it's not very easy for them. It's a bit frustrating, obviously, as viewers, because you think, you know, like I said with the front wing analysis, you know, just slap that on, do that, do this. It's not as easy as that. It has to work with the whole car, and at the moment they obviously don't have the budget for it. But yeah, they're still struggling around. But yeah, that's been all the teams' analysis for China, and let's get into the predictions. So these are my top 3 predictions for the Chinese Grand Prix. I put Nico Rosberg in first place. China being a very kind track to him. I think the front tyre limited track of China and the way it's set up, I think it suits Rosberg a bit more than Hamilton, so I think he'll get first place. Lewis also saying that even though he got fastest lap in FP2, he was very unhappy with the car, so I think he's a bit, I don't know, it was still fast, but he just wasn't comfortable with it. So I think he might be playing a bit of catch-up to Rosberg. And Hülkenberg in third place I put, because I think Force India are looking really good with the new aerodynamics package. I think they're going to be strong again this race. Maybe Perez, you know, they're pretty much interchangeable. But I think it would be nice to get Hülkenberg at third place this time. And yeah, that's been my predictions, guys, for the Chinese Grand Prix. Top 10, I see the Williams doing strong. Maybe just one of them. I see Ferrari coming back a bit, and maybe Alonso getting 7th place. Probably put Vettel in 6th. Have Jenson Button in 8th place. You know, just a few A few minor little changes, but not too much has changed, I don't think, to be fair, apart from maybe Williams getting a bit stronger due to the front limited track. But guys, do comment below your top 10 predictions, your top 3, who your surprise driver is, anything you want, you want to discuss. I do read all the comments. I may not comment, I may not reply to all of them, but I do read them all, and it's quite interesting to see people's predictions. Do comment that below, top 10 predictions for the Chinese Grand Prix. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and the analysis. Do comment below if these kind of videos are helpful for you to understand all the aerodynamics and stuff like that. Do subscribe for more of these videos. I will be doing one for every single race of the season if I can. I've been Aarava. I hope you enjoyed the rest of your day, and I will see you guys next time. Hope you enjoy the Chinese Grand Prix.